And without further ado, please join me in welcoming the beautiful Suzanne Giesemann. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hi, everybody. Oh, it's such an honor to talk with all of you. So I was just thinking this evening about the first time I watched a group of Shining Light parents on the screen when Zoom was very new. And there were 9 parents there on the gallery view. And somebody was leading a workshop going through a kind of a dry list of ways to heal yourselves. And everybody looked so depressed. I pushed myself back from the screen. The energy was so heavy. And then the leader of the workshop mentioned, oh, Suzanne has joined us. She's a medium. And everybody sat up. It was shocking. The response was just like a total shift in energy. And I understood what it was, that a medium offers people hope. Hope that our kids who have passed are not gone forever, that they're still part of our lives. And I want to tell you, they call me the messenger of hope. I should change that. I want to be like the guarantor of life after death, because the stories that I have been able to accumulate from my personal interaction with your kids, with our kids, have left no doubt whatsoever. We used to say in my military mind that death is not the end of our relationship with our loved ones, that they are such a part of our life every day, not just during drop-ins. I could go on and on and on, but I've prepared several evidence-filled stories to share with you. Recent, hot off the press, all of these new within the last month. Every month I do an online webinar. I call it the Monthly Connection, in which I share the latest evidence from the past month and the latest teaching from my guides. We just held one this past Tuesday, and I know some of you attended that. So I'm going to repeat 3 of those stories, one of them with a little more detail, but don't leave. First of all, Lynette and Bev, my wonderful team members, agree we could hear these stories 10 times and never get tired of them. So I don't mind repeating them. I love hearing them and reading them over and over again, but I have a new one to share with you after those that just unfolded for me this morning, and I will let the cat out of the bag. Very unusual for me. As I was reading this story in the email sent by one of the moms, I literally broke down, sitting on the couch, face in my hands, not just tears, just crying from, I think it was the humility of being part of this, not humiliation, the humility of being part of something so great, and the proof and the healing that it provided. It overcame me. So I'm grateful to be able to share that story with you. So don't go away. I want to start by sharing just an absolute magical story. They're all magical to me. I hope I never get tired of them. And when I say magic, I don't mean smoke and mirrors. I mean wondrous. That occurred with somebody who's using my new Awakened Way app. I hope you'll run out and get it. It's free. Just go to the App Store and whatever service you use and look for Awakened Way, because there's this really cool button on there you can push to see what message will pop up that you need to hear now. And I know it's spirit driven. It's pulling from the library of almost 5,000 daily messages from my guides in spirit. I add a new one every day to the app. But a woman wrote to me in the last couple of weeks to tell me about a magical experience she had when she pushed that button. Her brother had just passed. Before he passed, she spoke to her mom in spirit, and she said, Mom, I hope you're there to meet Jimmy, because I don't want him to pass alone. And I tell you, our kids, our loved ones, nobody passes alone. Even if they're a young child and there are no older relatives across the veil, angels, guides, animals meet them. But she also spoke to Jimmy when he was unconscious and said, Jimmy, Mom's going to be there to meet you. So hoping that this was true, and I know it's so, about 3 days after Jimmy passed, she picked up the app and pressed that inspire button for the perfect message for her. And you know what came back? a message that started with the words, "It's great to be home with my mom." Oh my gosh. When she sent that to me, I said, "What? That's not one of my daily messages. How did that pop up?" And you know, it was in there. I went back to 2014 to the date she said popped up, and I looked, and it was a message I stuck in with other messages so that people who read the daily messages would know I'm back in Florida after all my travels and we're going to have a channeling session tonight. So I stuck it in as a standalone message and never took it out of there. So here she is wondering if Jimmy met up with his mom, her mom, their mom. And the message she got back was, "It's great to be back with my mom." I just thought that was magical. So that's the first story. The second one, again, has to do with the Awaken Way app. It's very new. We haven't even had it out for a month yet. And I said to my husband, Ty, about a week ago, "Honey, would you put a comment on one of the posts in there? I want to test to see if comments are coming through okay." He said, okay. And he needed a little coaching because he's not real tech savvy. First one to admit it. And he wrote a comment like, "Beautiful message." So I opened the app and that message to see if it came through. And sure enough, it is. There it is, by Ty. Well, probably about 15 minutes later, I got an email from a woman. "Oh my gosh, I just got such a validation. I went in to post my very first response to one of the Awaken Way messages, and I saw the post from Ty. I had just asked my son for a sign. My son's name is Ty, across the veil." Well, as I was reading this, her son stepped into my awareness, completely merged with me. How do I know? It's even different when I get those drop-ins than when I do a regular reading. It's this full body wave that just takes your breath away. And I knew it was her son. Who else would it be at that very moment? I can't see him. I rarely do. I just knew it. So I said, "You know how this works. You have to give me evidence that will prove to your mom this is you. I'll reach out to her. What messages do you have for her as well?" And he went like this. And he pulled back an arrow in a bow. I knew that was what he was doing. I said, "Okay, I'll send her that image. What do you have to say to her?" And he had some beautiful, loving messages for mom. So I went in the back door of the app and found her email address. And I sent her an email, told her, "Your Ty is here. He just dropped in on me." And he made the motion of an arrow. I know this is significant for a memory. And I also know it's kind of like Cupid sending love to you. She wrote back within minutes and said, "You have no idea how profound that image is." And she included a link to a video from her son Ty's funeral. I tell everybody, and it's true, we attend our own funerals when we die. We love to hear what everybody says about us. Who wouldn't, right? All those nice things. So it's beautiful when you get validations that they were there. This one was huge. She said, "Go to our 1 hour, 5 minutes in the video, and you'll see his dad eulogizing Ty." So I fast forwarded to 1 hour, 5 minutes, and I literally gasped out loud. There's his dad. And he said, "I didn't get to attend my son's 21st birthday party because of COVID. If I had gone, I would have told him a story, an Indian story about a bow and an arrow, in which at age 21, the parents are the bow and the child is the arrow." And he went like this. The dad on the screen at the funeral made that exact motion and said, "Son, you're the arrow and you were set free. But I feel like now you're the bow and you're showing us that you're free by being the arrow." I might have mixed that up somehow, but the point is, how can you deny that? You're across the veil. One of pretend you're your child across the veil, and you need to get something through very quickly to this medium you just dropped in on, something really, really significant that will leave no doubt you're not only here now and giving your mom the sign through this app, but you were there at the funeral. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I love sharing those kind of stories with you. And by the way, he passed by suicide and he was perfectly fine. That's what his message was for his mom. So never have any doubt about that. Can you guys see this sparkling light on my sweater? It's like little lights lighting up. I love it. Okay. By the way, I am generally this cheerful, and I completely acknowledge that many of you are feeling anything but joyous now, and especially during the holiday season. But it's my stepdaughter, Susan, right here, who passed at age 27 when struck by lightning, that has shown me that joy is possible again for all of us when we acknowledge and recognize that they're still with us. And she's so close. So close. They can't be anywhere but here, because once you no longer have a body, you're in the timeless, spaceless state of pure consciousness. So there's only here in that state. So they can be with all of us at once, which is a beautiful promise. So let's see. Another story, a little validation. I have a podcast that I do about every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. I'm no longer with Unity Radio. They disbanded. So we have my own Messages of Hope podcast. You can find a link to that on my website. And we usually do Q&A sessions a couple times a month. And in a recent one, my wonderful assistants, Lynette and Bev, were throwing questions at me from the audience. And Lynette sent a question about animals. Do animals ever reincarnate as a different species? I had to check with my guides about that one, and they said generally no, because they're trying to evolve that one species. They would come back to help with the evolution. And so I was told by my guides on the spot to use the example of a guinea pig. Guinea pigs, for example, would always come back as a guinea pig. As the words came out of my mouth, I went back on the film to watch this because I was told this is what I said. I glanced up at my guides and I said, interesting choice, and then continued giving the answer. And I said that because we have talked about animals across the veil many times, but I have never given the example of a guinea pig. So I even acknowledged that with my guides. Well, about a day or so later, here comes another email from a Shining Light mom. She says, Suzanne, just before your podcast, I asked my son, if you're really with me, send me the sign of either a chinchilla or a guinea pig. And it was her first time to watch one of my podcasts live. And I said it not only once, but in that answer, I counted it on the video when I went back to watch it 5 times. In my answer, did I say guinea pig? So that was a total setup from Spirit. I love it. So there's another mom just changed by playing what I call the sign game. It's really wonderful to ask our loved ones for signs. Obviously, my guides were in on it. They were in cahoots with him. So let's see. And then I happened to look up guinea pig as a spiritual symbol afterwards, just for fun. The guinea pig is a symbol for surrounding yourself with helpful, affectionate, and emotional individuals. Stop hiding behind a wall or tucking yourself into a shell. Come out and have a good time. Guinea pig spirit animals' presence may symbolize a call to communal service, especially in spiritual settings. So I believe the guinea pig spirit is around all of us tonight. Wouldn't you say? We're all here to come out of our shell and celebrate that our kids who have passed are still so much a part of our lives. And so this next story, again, one I shared last Tuesday, but it's beautiful and worth repeating for those of you who weren't with us. So I'm going to look at my notes here to make sure I get the timeline right. But I did a reading for a woman named Patty Sumner. I usually don't give last names, but Patty's written a wonderful book about suicide and how we can deal with that with our kids. And I encourage everybody to look up Patty Sumner on Amazon. But I did a reading for Patty on March 1st, 2021. So over a year and a half ago, She's the mom of Melissa across the veil. Melissa took her own life, and that's why Patty wrote the book about suicide. She reached out to me, Patty did, last week to solve a long-held mystery since her reading in March of 2021. Partway through the reading, I brought through a young boy. He appeared to me to be about 9 years old, and he gave me the name Benny. And I could tell that Benny had passed from a sudden passing, possibly an accident. And Melissa shook her head and she said, I don't know anybody named Benny. I don't know any young boys who passed around that age. And I was just so sure that this little boy was here. I asked him, and he said he had a message for his mom and hoped that Patty would be able to get it through to her. Well, again, Patty doesn't know anybody who had a son named Benny, but you know, she never let that go. She's just reached out to Elizabeth Boisson, in fact, and asked her, do you have any parents of a Benjamin that might fit this description? Elizabeth didn't know anybody at the time, but since March of 2021, Patty had been watching the postings, always keeping Benny in mind. That just gives me goosebumps. I love that. That's a mom on a mission. Okay, so just last month, as a special holiday treat for my monthly connection, we offered sign up for the monthly webinar, which is just only $25 for 2 hours, and get any recording of the monthly connection from the 4 years of archives free. Anybody who signed up. So Patty decided to attend. And when she went to the archives, she was drawn, and this is no accident, to pull up the August monthly connection recording from this year. She started watching, and within the first 15 minutes knew why she had been drawn to the August monthly connection webinar. There I was, sharing the evidence from a reading I had just done last July, just a few months ago, talking about this woman, Marie's son, who came through so beautifully. Can you see this coming? His name is Benny. And he's a young boy under 11 who passed suddenly in a car accident. I'd completely forgotten about Benny from March 2021. You can imagine how many readings I did since then. But Patty never forgot. And now you know why she was drawn to that one. So right away, she emails me, Suzanne, I think this is Benny. Can you figure it out? Well, I'm at a dinner at a club we belong to. And well, actually, it was one of those financial meetings where, you know, you get a free dinner if you go and listen to the financial analyst. Happily, somehow I ended up against the back wall off to the side, and I should have been paying attention, but it was over my head. So I'm sitting there texting Marie in the middle of the dinner. Marie, I'll tell you why later. Tell me when Benny passed. I don't remember from your reading. Tell me how Benny passed. I don't remember. Was it sudden or was it an illness? Because I'm thinking if Benny, let's see, I knew his reading was in August, but Patty's reading was in March of 2021. If Benny passed after March of 2021, then it wasn't our Benny, right? So I'm playing detective. Type. And I set the phone down in the middle of this financial seminar. Ding, here comes, it didn't ring out loud, but there it is. And I'm looking. He passed before March of 2021. In fact, he passed June of 2018, hit by a car. So that's our Benny. I knew it was. I got the goosebumps to validate it. And I started answering her, telling her why. Filled in the whole thing. Well, I got a longer email from Patty the next day. This is the mom of Melissa, who was so diligent in tracking down Benny. Listen to what she said. It was 9 months after my daughter Melissa passed that she came to me through a friend's reading. So look at that. The first time Melissa heard from her daughter was not in her own reading. It was like Benny coming through in her reading. She came through in somebody else's reading, wanting her mom to know that she was okay. At the time, mediums were not part of Melissa's belief system. but she got really interested and started going to lots of mediums. And each and every one, she says, was magical. And get this, every single reading, her daughter Melissa came through and brought other spirits with her, with messages for other people. I've never heard of this done so often, yet look at this. It turns out that Melissa was a recruiter in this lifetime. I've asked Patty for a validation. What does she mean by that? Because I had it in my notes. I think a work recruiter, you know, where you help people find work. But that was literally what she did. And now she's doing it across the veil. This is no surprise to anyone who understands how we take our tendencies across the veil with us and like to do similar work, especially when it helps people. So she was continuing that job through spirit. So then Marie, Benny's mom, made some very interesting connections. It was just 2 weeks ago when all of this transpired, and she realized that week was her mother's birthday. It was her mother and father's anniversary. They're all in spirit now. And that week, Marie's daughter, Benny's sister, had her very first dream visit from Benny after 4.5 years of asking for him to come to her in dreams, all in the very same week that Patty figured this out. And Marie realized that Benny didn't come through just to say, hey, Mom, I'm okay. He came through with Melissa, orchestrating this whole thing for a message for all of us, of how spirit works in our lives, how children and their parents are always connected, how they're aware of special dates in our lives and always around, that it's really a cause for celebrating. So who helped bring all these things together? A mother and her daughter, a mother and her son, just beautiful. So clearly the message is these bonds can't be broken, and that even over a span of years, they're still working to bring us together. I think it's phenomenal that Benny came through March of 2021, and it took that long to bring Marie and me together in magical ways. And then several more months for Spirit to nudge Marie to get that particular monthly connection webinar and put all the pieces together. We all end up being like detectives, don't we? You know, putting the puzzle pieces together. That's kind of fun. So take a deep breath. Now I'm going to share the latest one that just unfolded this morning. Huge lessons learned for me as a medium. If any of you have taken any of my classes, I'm the first to admit this work just keeps getting better. And we all continue to have things to learn. I had to go into meditation this afternoon and talk to my guides and say, teach me what happened in this reading, why it unfolded the way it did, and how I can do better at discerning what's going on in the future. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, but I got some great lessons and I'm excited just about how this will unfold in the future indeed. So this is a lot of names. I hope you all are following me. I did a reading for Melissa in April, and Melissa's joining us tonight. She's not going to come on camera, but both moms are here. Melissa and Eileen are involved in this. So hi, Melissa and Eileen. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this tonight. So I did a reading for Melissa in April, and she was thrilled with the connection with her son, Kellen. Kellen came through beautifully, but I will tell you, I never said this to Melissa, but I came away from that reading shaking my head because so many things did not apply to her son, and yet they were so clear. But what did apply to her son was so profound that Kellen was majorly featured in my keynote speech at August's Helping Parents Heal conference. And I'm going to share those slides again with all of you. Many of you were there or watched the live stream and will recognize Kellen. Those who weren't, I want you to get to know him. So let's bring up, I'm going to share my screen here and show you Kellen. Let's see, we'll go here and we'll go here. There we go. So this is Kellen. And it was magical the way that reading came about, because Melissa had been on my waiting list for 3 years. And her birthday, I think, was coming up. And she said to Kellen, you need to move me up on that waiting list, or something to that effect. And do you know, yeah, tap Lynette, my scheduling assistant, on the shoulder, Kellen. That very day, Lynette reached out to her and said, it's time to schedule your reading. How can you deny Spirit's role in that? It was absolutely beautiful. So using Melissa's notes from that reading, I'll go through the slides with you now. But I said that Kellen just burst in and I said, he's given me this bubbly feeling. He feels like a kid in a candy shop. And that was more, I said, this significant. I don't usually say that. Things that come out of our mouths when we do a reading, pay attention to them because they're significant. Well, here's a picture of Kellen in the candy store that was right down the street from their house that he went to often. So I loved that way of showing that he was right there with us. I referenced Kellen showing me a football game and Kellen bursting onto the field, like when the team bursts onto the field through a flag. Well, guess what? Look at this picture. Here is Kellen on the field with the Seattle Seahawks, a special treat that he got to enjoy. Kellen passed from cancer, and I believe they knew that he was not well when this happened and gave him that special gift. And he showed me this very clearly. Again, these are things that I call gold nuggets of evidence. It's the kind of thing that an evidence-based medium strives for. So that one definitely was that. He showed me himself in a Superman t-shirt and then showed me Mighty Mouse. Not everybody is old enough to remember Mighty Mouse, but he used to sing, "Here I come to save the day." And that's what Kellen was showing me. And in fact, there he is in his Superman t-shirt that his mom was able to validate. And not exactly Mighty Mouse, but I knew he was trying to get me to that because Kellen was too young for Mighty Mouse, but a favorite cartoon character of his. Then he showed me there was some story with a snake that his mom went, ew, and didn't want to hear anything about it. It was such a profound story that she had a picture of it. This is a horrible picture. Mom did not take this picture because indeed she went running from this scene on this day when Kellen was handling the snake. So I love when they bring up memories, and I share all of these with you so you know that that's what happens in a good reading when they share specific memories, especially ones that you have photos of. All right. He showed me that he enjoyed jumping on a trampoline. I don't know if every young boy does, but she sure had photos of that. He showed me that he went through a skateboard phase. Do all boys? I don't know, but Kellen did. He showed me that he used to like to wear his hat backwards. Mom found 2 pictures of that because she sure validated that on the spot and validated the personality that I described feeling. That's how I anchor in a connection. It's always the goal, and I teach my students this, to capture the people's essence so that you leave a reading and saying, that was him, that was her, whoever is across the veil. The medium describes the personality, their essence, their characteristics, and their traits so clearly that you don't leave and say, well, I think that was them. No, the essence combined with these gold nuggets of evidence backs up their messages when they say, I'm okay, I'm still here. Then you can trust that's coming from them. Kellen showed me camping with a group and having really good memories of that. And indeed he did. And here's a time that he was camping with his dad a year before he was diagnosed with the brain tumor. He went on a fishing trip in Idaho. And of course, again, the pictures to back it up. Somewhere in the reading, he talked about a good friend of his who had drawn a portrait of him. And indeed, Mom knew who this was. It was a girl who was a good friend of Kellen's. And then later in the reading, Kellen brought up a decoder ring. Now, lots of people across the veil show me rings, but he told me specifically, this is a decoder ring. And Melissa reached out to that girl, that friend across the veil, and asked her if she knew about the decoder ring. We somehow had a feeling she was connected because of the way it came up in the reading. Not only did she know about it, she had it. They got it together when they visited a museum. Here it is. Look at this. It literally spins around. It is, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a secret decoder ring, but Kellen brought it up in his reading, and that girlfriend took a picture of it so we could show it to all of you. I was just blown away by that. And then toward the end of the reading, Kellen made this motion of flapping his wings and clucking like a chicken. I thought, this has something to do with a sports team he was on. And his mother said that sounded familiar to her. So after the reading, I love when parents play detective. She reached out to the coach of that team. And it turns out it was his ultimate Frisbee team, to see if the coach remembered the name of the team. Are you ready for this? Remember this? I'd like you to see the Chicken Warriors. Chicken Warriors is the name of the team. Now, see, Melissa didn't even remember this. So this is when I love to educate people and say, look, the medium is not reading your mind. This is coming from your child across the veil or whatever loved one it is. So the Chicken Warriors just cracked me up. So again, when I finished that reading, Melissa was thrilled. I was thrilled. She was thrilled, but I left and said, yeah, but what about this and this and this and this that she couldn't take? I teach my students, trust the spirit, not the sitter. If you see something and you know it's real, trust it. Well, I'm about to show you that there was another spirit present in that reading whose personality was so much like Kellen's that I didn't realize we had two young men across the veil, Kellen and another, and that all the no's applied to this other son who Melissa had not yet met his mother. Wow. So today I found out that Melissa was like the other mom. She never gave up hunting for the names that came up in her reading that she couldn't take. Brian came up twice, at least twice. Then we had the name Mark, we had the name Matt, and we had the name Jason and Justin. I tell people when names come up in your reading, don't just dismiss it as wrong. It may be meaningful later. Okay, so all these names, but Melissa never forgot. She was always watching the Helping Parents Heal rosters in the Facebook page. And then she had the feeling when she went to the Helping Parents Heal conference, she was going to be on the lookout for the parents of Brian or Mark or Justin or Jason or Matt. Okay, so she is sitting down during one of the talks, not mine, and she sits down next to a mom and finds out this is the mother of Brian across the veil. She started to share how the name Brian came up in her reading. I believe the reading was April of this year. The conference was in August. And again, randomly sat down next to this woman, learned they had a son in spirit named Brian. Not only that, they were from Philadelphia. Now a little bell goes off. Good one. Pun intended, I guess, from the spirit world, because in Kellen's reading, I clearly saw this Brian, and I saw a Philadelphia connection, and specifically the Liberty Bell. Well, the mom started talking about their sons. She started talking about this reading and started piecing together all the pieces of the puzzle, including one of the first things that came through, even though I don't see the spirits, and that's why I couldn't tell we have two separate people. I just feel them and their personalities were the same. I said, I'm seeing a white collared shirt and I have a very strong sense of spiky hair. I'd like you to meet Brian. White collared shirt, spiky hair. This is his senior photo and the photo his mom used in his obituary. So pretty significant right off the bat. I would like you to see Brian standing in front of the Liberty Bell. Anybody else get goosebumps just then? Yeah. Okay. Now, see, this is why I was so confused when I left that reading. I have a very specific symbol when I do readings that I know I'm supposed to bring up Philadelphia. I'm from that area, and Philly is famous for its soft pretzels. And in that reading, I very clearly saw a soft pretzel. So I knew there was a Philadelphia connection, and Melissa saying no. And this is one of the things you train for. You don't let the nose throw you off. And yet I still had no idea we had another person's son with us. So let's see. The personality traits that I described came through and applied to both boys, not particularly generic. I'll share it with you from the email this morning. Both had a very busy energy. Kellen was diagnosed with ADHD. He was stubborn and independent, a picky eater with food allergies, loved animals, full of humor, loved to tell jokes, extroverted, a big talker, sporty, athletic, and enjoyed pushing the envelope. Brian shared many of these same traits, also diagnosed with ADHD, stubborn and inquisitive, a picky eater with food allergies, extroverted, enjoyed debating, loved animals, athletic, played multiple sports, and also enjoyed pushing the envelope. I've done thousands of readings, and that is not a generic type. That's very specific when you put it all together in its entirety. So it was easy for Melissa and Eileen to imagine Kellen and Brian connecting and being friends on the other side of the veil, since they shared so much in common. So Melissa and Eileen listened to the reading together and pieced together more of the pieces of the puzzle. Let's see. I want to thank Eileen and Melissa for putting these photos together, by the way, and especially doing it so quickly when they realized I'd be speaking tonight. I want to share some insights from Eileen before I forget. She wanted me to share that even though Brian passed by suicide and Kellen did not, she and Melissa formed a strong bond because of their attitude about their sons across the veil, their awareness that they're still with them, their awareness to seek further growth spiritually. That, Eileen found, is what bonds you, not just that your kids pass the same way. So it was just a beautiful insight. She said, all child loss is traumatic, but some parents feel more traumatized by the circumstances and suddenness and may feel that other bereaved parents may not understand. I've never felt this with Melissa. It's fortunate that the memories we share are not usually triggering to each other, and that's been a blessing in terms of our greater closeness. That really confused me when I felt a suicide during Melissa's reading with Kellen, and she said, no, he didn't take his own life. And I have very specific symbols. I knew what I was seeing. So again, this is why I went to my guides afterwards and said, show me how to differentiate when the personality is the same. From now on, if I have two people and don't realize it, give me a sign. Anybody who's practicing mediumship, this is what you do. You work with your guides afterwards. And they gave me two specific symbols that I know will work for me moving forward. So the beauty in this is that Melissa wasn't disappointed in the reading. I was disappointed in myself, but it was still good enough to use in the keynote speech. And now, because we didn't bring a lot of negative energy into it, Melissa was able to connect with Eileen and help Eileen get these beautiful messages from her own son, Brian, that he is okay, which is just fabulous. And then I'll be able to move forward as a medium and hopefully solve these puzzles. Although my guides have told me we'll still bring you people your sitters don't recognize, and they're going to have to find the people. So it just shows you that we all have to work together in this. It's one big web of connections. So again, show me that Brian was laughing about his hair in the reading. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just reading my notes so I don't miss any, because this is also new to me. In the reading, I said, I'm seeing pointing at the eyes, and I saw a flash of very blue eyes. Did Kellen have blue eyes? And she said, no. So again, so confusing to me. I know what I'm seeing. Well, here's what I was seeing. That's Brian. Look at those blue eyes. Huh. We learn through experience. So I learned this lesson. At two different points in the reading, I referenced a thumbprint. I even said, you may even have his thumbprint by the way this feels, and a lock of his hair. Melissa couldn't take either one of those, but that was a gold nugget for Eileen. Look, she has Brian's thumbprint and a lock of his hair. Here it is, that she keeps in a little purple bag on his altar. Until meeting Melissa, she wasn't even able to look at these things. But in gathering the notes to help all of you know our kids are still here, she looked through the photos for the first time. She went and found these things. She touched them, and she's feeling uplifted by it instead of brought down. So this is the healing path, and look how our kids bring us to that point. All right. There was a feeling in the reading, I thought I was talking to Kellen, of Melissa being separated from Kellen's dad, as in a divorce. And Melissa said, no, I'm very much married to Kellen's dad. And again, I'm just thinking, wow, how can I be so wrong? But indeed, Eileen is separated from Brian's dad. And that's how. The information was accurate. Then tattoos came up in the reading. And I said, as I say tattoo, I'm supposed to mention feathers, specifically as signs you've noticed. Well, there were no tattoos or things that Melissa could claim regarding feathers, but look at Brian's tattoo with the feather right at the bottom of the tattoo. You can't deny this. I said, I see an arm going back and throwing it like throwing a football. Did Kellen play football on a team? No, he didn't, but Brian did. And here's the part of the reading where the names came up that Melissa didn't recognize. Besides Brian coming up again, remember Matthew, then Jason, and then Justin. I'm really hard on myself when my sitters can't take names. I'm learning to go easier on myself. When we trust spirit, check this out. Brian was on a volleyball team that won a championship. His coach's name is Matt. Here's the roster of that championship team. Notice the names: Matt, the coach, Jason, Brian, and Justin. And this picture on the left side of the screen, he's standing there with Justin and Jason. And Eileen sent me a separate photo with Matt. That's when I cried. That's when I cried. It was just, we all need to stop being so hard on ourselves. Spirit is doing their best to let us know they're here, and it'll all work out if we just stay with it, serve from the heart, and trust spirit. Wow. Let's see. I was supposed to mention the name Mark. Remember that? Well, here's a picture of Eileen's, the older man. It's her cousin's husband, Mark, and their son, Mark Anthony. Well, get this. It was during Mark Anthony's session at the Helping Parents Heal conference that Melissa sat down next to Eileen for the first time. I see some shaking heads, and that's how I feel about life every day. Spirit pulls out the stops to just astound us. Okay, let's see. I didn't feel during Melissa's reading that Kellen had passed before his grandfather had. And Melissa said, no, they didn't meet in physical form. I felt that they had met. And she said, no, they never met. And I said, that's strange because I sensed them meeting again across the veil. And I spoke about a musical family and a strong feeling that some of that musicality came from the grandfather. Melissa couldn't take this either. No musicality in the family. He didn't know his grandfather. Well, I'd like you to meet Brian's grandfather, playing the violin, obviously at a very young age. And Brian's mom plays 4 different instruments. So there's that musicality being passed down through the generations. I love it. He gave me the name Jenny. Eileen shared that she has an Aunt Jenny in spirit. Eileen does, not Melissa. So all of the names were accurate if I had only realized we had another spirit there. Thank God Melissa never gave up. I love this final one here. As boy, as perfect timing as we're coming near the end of this. I saw this young man in spirit who I thought was Kellen handing across a key, but it's an old time key. The kind you put in an old door lock. Melissa couldn't identify it at all, but Eileen could. It's the key to a house they have, a vacation house. And Brian sure knew about that key. Even had a picture of it. So isn't that awesome? Another remarkable discovery. You remember the chicken warriors, right? Melissa shared with Eileen that when Kellen was born, they chose the name Kellen because it means mighty warrior. Brian's middle name is Walter, and together Brian Walter means strong warrior. So of course, their 2 warriors would find each other across the veil to let not only their moms, but all the moms and dads tuning into this beautiful story as it unfolds know that our kids are together across the veil when we're together, because we're all connected by the love. So speaking of gifts, I'll end this whole story of Melissa and Eileen and Brian and Kellen by going back to the final slide I shared at the HPH conference with Kellen's story. One of the biggest gold nuggets of evidence that Kellen gave me in his reading with his mom was when he showed me that they donated his eyes after he passed. And she says, you couldn't have known that. And of course I couldn't, but it was Kellen's phrase after that that really stunned us. He said, it's okay, Mom, that you gave away my eyes. I don't need them anymore because I can see you just fine. And I absolutely love that. That is the bottom line for all of our kids. They don't have physical eyes anymore, and they don't need them because they can see you just fine. And they are just fine. And they are creative, and they are together with others and with loved ones across the veil, and they can visit several of you at any time because they're no longer in a body. They're free. And it doesn't matter how they passed, they're fine, and they're so surrounded by love, and that's what they want all of us to know more than anything. So as we go into this holiday season, I know it's challenging. It can be challenging because we want them here with us physically. They are closer than ever. My Susan showed me that when Irene was with me one day. She was listening in on us as we were joking around, and later a medium came through Irene and said that Susan was talking about that joke, talked about the exact subject of the joke in a way we couldn't deny it. And I was stunned. How could Susan be there and I not even know it? Again, I don't see them. I just feel them. And I went into meditation and I asked Susan, how could you be right there and I didn't feel you? She said, Suzanne, I'm always with you. We are all always with you. It's like the hair on your head. You don't feel it till the wind blows. And when they want to get your attention, They'll metaphorically blow the wind in multiple ways, drop feathers in front of you, put heart-shaped stones in front of you, turn your television on, but they're always here. That's why you're not aware of it. Okay? So talk to them and you blow the wind for them. And they know you're thinking about them. And pay attention to the many ways they get your attention and honor that, because they're going to a lot of trouble. So when you think, is it just my imagination? You're dismissing their efforts. They love you so much, no matter what. So don't worry about that, but please definitely talk to them because they hear you. So
That was absolutely beautiful. And I just want to remind everyone about Brian. Just think of how much effort that took to come into a reading for Kellen and to give all of this information about himself during that reading, having the mom and Suzanne saying, no, this is not right. No, but holding on to that and being able
right,
to.
she said no, and I just knew it's coming from somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you knew, but it's so fascinating to think that a lot of times people have information that might be coming to them through readings that might not be exact, and being able to be detectives and find out exactly where that information is coming from is so important, because these kids will grasp at any means possible to be able to communicate with us. And we just have to be open to everything. And so I love that story, because they, again, are working just as hard as we are from the other side to connect with us. So we just have to be aware of that and understand that it might not come from a reading that we're having from you or from another medium. It might be secondhand, but it's something that's very, very important. And what a beautiful story, especially the Mark Anthony part. I hope you've been able to share that with him. That's really exciting.
This unfolded this morning, and I spent the whole afternoon putting the slides and my notes in order so I'd be ready to share it this evening. So it's great.
Oh, it's just beautiful. And we have so many people in the chat box talking about how wonderful this is and how thrilled that they are to be on here listening to this. This is just amazing, Suzanne. And again, this is something that is such a huge validation. You weren't even sitting with that mom. So a lot of times people say that maybe you're picking up on psychic energy and being able to read the person that you are speaking to. That obviously didn't happen at all with Brian, which is just so exciting. So anyway, it's always wonderful to have you here with us. Irene, do you have something to say as well?
No, just thank you so much. Wow, that was just incredible. Oh, just wonderful.
It's always wonderful to have you with us, and thank you so very much. And moving into the holidays, it's always wonderful to know that our kids are still right here, and you always are able to.
Lots of love to all of you.
Out